You don't sing Whitney on the show. Sing Whitney down on the show and don't move on to lives. That's just really weird to me. Like, I really don't understand that. Hello and welcome to the Pitchy Podcast. I am your host, Stephanie. Here on the Pitchy Podcast, we are passionate about good music and a great vocal. And we use the vehicle of NBC's The Voice to give you our takes on the contestants and give you feedback on their voice and their overall performance. Here's what's happening today. So, season 26 of NBC's The Voice has just finished, just wrapped last week. We have our season 26 winner, Sofronio Vasquez, and we are so thrilled for him as our winner. So when the season of NBC's The Voice takes a break, we tend to get a little creative and figure out what it is that we're going to discuss in between seasons. We learned that in February, early February, season 27 of NBC's The Voice will kick off with its new coaches, and we are very excited about that. But in the meantime and in between time, we want to give you some fresh content, mostly about season 26 of NBC's The Voice. Now, those of you who are regulars around here realize that my wonderful co-host James is not with me. So as you will see, this recording is going to come out the week before Christmas, and I decided to give my friend a break. He don't even know that I'm recording this episode. So this is my Christmas gift to James, recording this episode on my own, so that he can take a break. And then next week, both of us will be taking a break to celebrate the holidays. And we will get back with you all after the new year. So today we have a very interesting topic. All throughout this season, I had a feeling. And the feeling was, this season just feels a little bit weird. Something feels a little bit, not completely off, but just a little bit weird. So when I sat down to start thinking about all the things that made this season feel weird to at least me, I came up with 8 things that I found made this season a little bit strange, a little bit weird. And so I'm going to share those with you in a second. I'm going to have also 3 bonus weird things that I found about this season, and that is only for our Patreons. So if you are not a Patreon yet, you can go. There will be a link at the end of the show. There's always a link in the show notes so that you can join us on Patreon, $5 per month, and we will continue to have content in this time in between seasons. We will have new episodes with new content and new bonus content for our Patreon, so we can continue to give them their money's worth. So I'll have those 3 bonuses at the end of the episode for our Patreons. But for all of you today, we are going to get started with 8 weird things about season 26 of NBC's The Voice. So here is thing number 1. Thing number 1, weird thing number 1, was this year's coaches. This season 26 of NBC's The Voice, we had 2 returning coaches. Coach Reba, and this was her 3rd season, and Coach Gwen, and this was her 8th season. We had 2 brand spanking new coaches that it was like, where did they come from? Why are they coaches, and how is this going to work? That was my feeling going into the season prior to seeing any of the episodes. So first we had Michael Bublé, and I'm like, how in the world did Michael Bublé get roped into doing The Voice? Unbeknownst to me, I did a little research corner. He was an advisor for Blake on season 3 of The Voice. All them years ago. That probably had to have been over 10 years ago. So it's really interesting that they approached him now to become a coach. And as the season went on, I really grew to love Michael Bublé as a coach, as a mentor, as a person. He seemed really genuine. He seemed really caring. He seemed really skilled at giving his artists really good feedback and really good tips and notes. And he really seemed to care. So that became a little less weird as the season went on. Our last coach was Coach Snoop. Snoop Doggy Dog, the DOGG himself, Uncle Snoop, as those of us who have been riding with Snoop Dogg for all these many years call him affectionately. Now, I knew that I had remembered Snoop being a mega mentor a few seasons ago. And again, Research Corner, I checked, and he was the mega mentor for season 20, which was the season where Blake and Kelly, John Legend, and Nick Jonas were the primary coaches. Now, I remember back then thinking, Snoop Dogg, what is Snoop Dogg going to do as far as coaching vocalists, because he is a rapper? Well, I remember thinking that he was very impressive. He knew music. And he was able to give the contestants, the artists, very valuable feedback. So the more I thought about Snoop being a primary coach, the less weird it became. And those of you that watched season 26 of The Voice throughout the entire season, you saw that Snoop was an excellent, excellent, excellent coach. And Snoop been all over NBC since Olympics and prior to. So NBC is getting their full money's worth with whatever contract they have given Snoop Dogg. And Snoop is taking full advantage of his opportunity and has really recreated his image to really be like that fun, joyous, good energy unk that America is just in love with. So I'm really, really happy for him. And I was really, really pleased to see the beautiful dynamic that these coaches had this past season, season 26. So, weird thing number 2. I felt overall like this season is flying by, season 26. I just felt like it was flying by. And so as the season went on, it was just like, has there been less episodes of the show? Like, it just feels like it's short. So the weird thing would be that it felt like the season was cut short, or that this season was shorter overall. So again, Research Corner, I went back and looked at our prior podcasts of season 24, which would have been the fall season of last year, 2023, to compare how many of each round there were for the entire season. And this is what I found. For season 24, there were 7 episodes of blind auditions. For season 26, there were 6 episodes of blind auditions. For season 24, there were 6 nights or episodes of battles. For season 26, only 5. For season 24, there were 4 episodes of the knockouts. For season 26, only 3. For season 24, there were 3 episodes of playoffs. For season 26, there were the same. Here's where it really got interesting. For season 24, there was a top 12 live show, there was a top 9 live show, and then there was the top 5 live show, all with result shows coming the next day. For season 26, all we had was a top 8 live show and then the top 5 live show. So there were fewer episodes in this fall season of NBC's The Voice than the past. I wonder if that had to do with the election. I know one of those weeks they did not air, at least on Tuesday, at least on Election Tuesday. Now, I don't remember if Election Monday they had an episode, but there were at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 less episodes in season 26 than there were in season 24. So I wonder what that was all about. But that was a little weird to me because I had remembered at least the prior fall being a little bit longer. So here is weird thing number 3. We had a few contestants that mysteriously left mid-season, mid-competition, and we ain't find out why. They was just gone. So the first was Tanner Frick. Tanner Frick, we learned of his leaving night 1 of the knockouts. And it was interesting because they said during the episode that he left after the rehearsals for that particular round of knockouts. Now, if you are a detective like me, that let me know that during the rehearsals, he was there. So when they showed his rehearsal with Michael Bublé, I believe that's who was his coach at the time of his departure. You always see in those instances where there is more than one contestant in the round, you see the artist that is rehearsing, and then you see the other ones to the side. Cut over to the side, and you can see Tanner. He was sitting there, but they did not air his rehearsal clip because, as they said, he left. Did not really find out why. Did not find out why. There was some rumors going around on various social medias and different mediums about why Tanner left, but it was a shame because James in particular really, really liked Tanner. I liked him too. James, though, really, really liked Tanner. So it was sad that he had to leave. Our second person that left was Moore Ilderton. And at the time he was on Team Gwen, and it was known that he left at night 3 of the knockouts. Gwen had stolen Moore the round before, and she just said he had to go home. And I was like, well, dang. Where'd you go? And why did you go? Moore had one of the more unique voices of the season. So I was sad to see him go because I wanted to see what Gwen could do with the uniqueness of his voice and what songs she would give him. So that was kind of sad. And I don't know that we've had a season where we usually maybe get one or two contestants that have to leave mid competition, but this was the first time I remember more than one and having to leave and nobody really sharing why. So we wish them the best and hope that they are still singing and in music and doing music if that's what they want to be doing. It was just sad that they had to leave. So weird thing number 4. Previously, I talked about how some of our coaches were interesting choices. Some of our mentors this year were interesting choices. So the ones that were not so much interesting, but just really cool, we had Sting. The Sting, Every Breath You Take Sting of the Police Sting. And he was fantastic. We had J Hud. J Hud was back in the building throwing shoes and everything. She was a delight to see. We had Lainey Wilson. We had Carly Pierce. Wonderful mentors. One gave the artists wonderful feedback and wonderful tips. Here's where it got interesting. We had MGK for Team Gwen. He was a mentor for Team Gwen's artists. Now, the most famous thing we know MGK for is his relationship with Megan Fox, and now they done broke up. Yes, I said broke up. Now they done broke up. And she pregnant. But that's neither here nor there. I, interestingly enough, had seen MGK, Machine Gun Kelly, but he goes by MGK, on at least one episode of MTV's Catfish with Neve and them, where they be finding the people who somebody has formed an online relationship with somebody and they can't get in real life contact with them, so they try to find them and see if they are who they really say they are. He was actually on an episode of that with Neve, and I really, really liked him on that episode. He just seemed like a really genuine, kind dude. I don't know too much about him musically. I upon research corner, found that he does a little bit of everything. He does rock, he does rap, he writes, he plays the guitar, I believe. So I was really interested to see what kind of feedback, what kind of information, what kind of tips, what kind of mentorship he would give to the artist, and he was actually very excellent. The second one was even more stunning than MGK, because at least MGK is in music. Snoop done brought Simone Biles. And I'm like, you the goat. You the goat for real. Love you, Simone. But you a gymnast. You don't sing. And if you do sing, you don't do it professionally. So what is she going to offer? And this is when, after seeing what she did on the show, this is when I was like, okay, Snoop Dogg is really low key a genius, because what she did was she talked to the mental side of singing. She talked about confidence, being yourself, being mentally prepared, all the things that she's had to develop and work on to be the GOAT at her craft. And that's the wisdom that she imparted on these artists. And I was like, this is brilliant, because whether y'all know or not, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. The coaches are not the only people that mentor these artists on the show. They have actual vocal coaches that they work with that help them with their vocals. And they work with Paul and the band on the instrumentation and the full arrangement and the overall performance. But they have like legit vocal professionals that they work with on this show. So anybody that comes in as a mentor or as a coach or anything like that is just, they're actually more supplemental. And the vocal coaches that are on the show are probably the people that they are working the most with on vocals. So for Snoop to bring in somebody who is not a vocalist, but somebody who can speak to the thing that really trips singers up, getting in their heads, having confidence, not being anxious, because those are all the things that really do affect vocalists, other than, you know, their actual voice and the singing portion of it. I thought it was really, really, really brilliant, and she gave really great feedback, really great advice, and it was very unexpected, and it was a weird choice, but it really, really worked. So, weird thing number 5. Those of us who have watched The Voice for a long time know that the foundation of this show is country. Weird thing number 5 is that there was only one country artist that made it to the top 8. And that was Miss Christina Eagle, and she was on Team Snoop. None of that I would have predicted. I wouldn't have predicted that there would only be one artist going into the top 8, and that's when the live shows began. I would not have expected the country artist, the only country artist, to be on Team Snoop. That was shocking and surprising in and of itself. And I know that that was strategic for Snoop, because he said as much. When he pitched for her after she gave her performance, he basically said, this show is built on country. Come on, country fans, and vote for Christina Eagle. It's not a bad strategy, and he's 1000% correct. Unfortunately, Christina did not make it to the top 5s. So we did not have any country artists in the top 5. And that was pretty stunning, because this show is definitely built on country music. And we usually see a lot of country artists come to the forefront the further you go in the competition. And that just was not the case this year, even though Christina Eagle was absolutely excellent and we love her. So now we have a weird thing number 6. Now I call this weird, but I actually think it's pretty cool. And I don't know that it's happened before. All the contestants in the top 5 were 4 chair turns. Jeremy, Danny, Sydney, Shy, Sophronio, all were 4 chair turns. I thought that was so cool when Carson gave us that little nugget of information at some point. At some point, whether it was at the end of the top 8 or whether it was starting out the top 5 show, he gave us that little nugget of information. And like I said, I don't know that that's happened before. You could see with these artists, Jeremy, Danny, Sydney, Shy, Sophronio. Of course, they were all 5 chair turns. Sydney was probably the most surprising, but I don't remember her her blind song, but I remember thinking of her, yo, she got a voice on her for being as young as she is. And the fact that she made it all the way through to the top 5s, and the fact that she and Shy being the youngest members of the top 5, the way that they handled themselves during the entire show, but the pressure that it must have been of all the things that you have to do in the top 5s, not only your 2 performances, you had the big finale performance with the top 8 where they did Defying Gravity. They have their song that they do with their coach, and just the anticipation of, am I going to be the winner? I think that those 2 in particular handled it really well, and all of the top 5 were great. James and I both really loved them all as artists and as people as well. Okay, so now we have weird thing number 7. Some of the choices in the live performances, both shows, top 5 and top 8 show, were just a little weird to me. Had me asking some questions like, tell me your thought process about why we are doing this particular thing, why this particular element is here. And I have 3 examples. My first is Jeremy, his top 5 performance, What the World Needs Now. Now, Jeremy is just, he is a singer. Okay, he could sing. He could release an album much like a Bublé album. He could sing on Broadway. He was asked to sing What the World Needs Now as his more up-tempo song, which none of the up-tempos were up-tempo. Let's make that clear. And we made that clear in our reaction video to the top 5 live performances. That's neither here nor there. Here's where my question came. Now, it made a lot of sense with this song to have a quote unquote choir, to have people on stage that were either singing as well or were portraying that they were singing as well as a choir. What was interesting to me that was they were miming and they were doing choreography, like miming choreography, sitting on like risers. There were like 4 or 5 layers of them, and they were like doing miming type things as Jeremy was singing. That was a little weird to me. That was a little distracting to me. If they had just been people on the risers, kind of like just vibing to the music and clapping and whatever, that would have felt a little bit more organic. But the choreography of it all, the miming of it all, I didn't really get. I thought it was a little weird. But Jeremy sang the song down. So then we have Danny. Danny sang I Was Wrong by Chris Stapleton for one of his top 8 selections. Although his setup, staging was very cool, it was very cool. I'll give him that. It was very cool. I was like, what are we doing? And even at the end, after he got done performing and Carson says, good job, all that kind of thing, he kind of made reference that it seemed like Danny was standing in a field of like in like a marijuana field or something like that, because he alluded to the fact that the grass up there was probably some that Snoop might like or something like that, something to that effect. It was weird. It was like this grassy garden with these stick long stick lights that were like shaped like pyramids and triangles and diamonds and just some straight up lights on both sides. Like visually, it's unmatched. Like visually, it was really, really cool to look at. Then back on the screens, you have like, it looked like Palm Beach or Palm Springs, excuse me. It was giving Palm Springs because it was giving like garden, like 70s garden with like pinks and lush and like old school TVs, like projected on the screen. It was a whole vibe. If you have not seen this performance, go back and check it out so you can see what exactly I'm talking about. Like visually, it was gorgeous. But I was like, I don't understand what this has to do with the song. I don't understand what it has to do with the song. But visually, it was gorgeous. It was just a little weird to me. Here's my last. Sydney. Sydney sang Snow Patrol's Chasing Cars for one of her top 5 performances. Now, this is the song. Like it's such a gorgeous song, and it takes a lot of us, especially those of us of a certain age, around 30ish, 40ish, especially if y'all watch Grey's Anatomy, it takes us to that place. Very emotional place. And I thought that Sydney sang the song down. It was so gorgeous. Here was my issue. There is a lyric in the song that I'm losing, but it's something about if I lie here. If I lay here, if I just lay here. Okay. The production, staging, and set people took that super dupe literally, and said, okay, we laying here, we gonna put some beds on this stage. So they had like queen king size beds, very plain, like black kind of wire framed, not wire, but you know what metal framed beds for Sydney and some like ballerina looking chicks that were dancing on the bed with her. And then different members of the band were on their own little beds. At the middle end of Sydney's performance, she levitated. The bed levitated. And I knew that was going to happen because eagle eye me was looking, and I saw the wires on either side of the bed, and she was wearing a belt that seemed like it didn't quite go with the outfit, but seemed like it was like a support belt for them to have a wire on her so that they could elevate her. So the bed levitated, and she levitated on it, and she's singing the song down, and she's singing the song gorgeous, but it was giving, and this is what James said, and I agree, and this is not Sydney's fault. This is no shade on Sydney because she did what she was asked to do. It was giving mental asylum. It was giving mental hospital. It was giving unwell. And I didn't appreciate that imagery with this song. It was unnecessary. They could have had anything. They could have done anything. They could have had the dancers just dancing around with just minimal staging, lights, something like that. The beds were out of bounds. The beds was just out of bounds, and it was just very weird for me. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. But Sydney sang that song down. So, weird thing number 8. This is our last one for our main feed content. So there was an abundance of talent this year. And it was so weird that some of these talented artists did not make it through further in the competition, in my opinion. They were taken out way too soon. Taken out way too soon. So I'm going to go through a short list of some of the artists that I think did not make it as far as they should have, based on the talent that they displayed the week of their dismissal. And I am leaving people off of this list because this season was really, really talented. But I'd be on this podcast forever. So first was the group Mr. Moon. Two really, really talented ladies that were that battled Cristeo, and Cristeo won the battle, and they were not saved. Mr. Moon is probably the most talented duo I've ever seen on The Voice, and I was really sad and shocked that they were not stolen or saved, and that they left the week of battles. Next was Jameson Puckett. He was our soulful worship leader, and he was gone as well in the battle rounds, and he battled Shy. I loved their battle. I thought that they did a beautiful job together. No shade on Shy winning, because Shy is Shy. I thought that Jameson should have been stolen or saved, and he was not. Next was Kay Sybil. She just has a superstar vocal. Like, think of Ariana Grande. Think of, just think of like an Ariana Grande-ish type voice that is really skilled, yet can do different things, that can have different textures and layers. And girlfriend could play the keys. She was knocked out during the knockouts, and I was very unhappy about that. J. Paul sang Kiss from a Rose. I have not heard that song redone, remade, reimagined, I don't know, ever, especially not on this show. And he was knocked out during the knockouts, and I was very not happy about that. And then we have Jose Luis, who sang No More Drama, Down, did Auntie Mary J proud, and he left during the playoffs. They did not send him to lives. I believe he was on Team Gwen. The fact that we did not get to see Jose Luis on the lives was enraging, because he would have slayed. He would have slayed. They and that's where I'm like, this season was too short. We should have had a top 12. But that didn't happen. The last person I'll name is the person that I thought that it was the most egregious that she did not make it to the lives, and that is Aaliyah Kalen. How you gonna sing Whitney Houston, The Voice? How are you going to sing The Voice and sing the voice down? And singing Whitney's, what I would say is one of Whitney's hardest songs, I Have Nothing. Sang that thing down, sang it arguably better than the recording that we hear of Whitney doing the song, and she ain't make the lives. She left in the playoffs as well. Big mad. Huge mad. Big mad. Was not happy with that decision. Was not happy that she deserved. You don't sing Whitney on this show. Sing Whitney down on this show, and don't move on to lives. That's just really weird to me. Like, I really don't understand that, because you don't get the level of difficulty of Whitney is so high that almost like they do in American Idol, here, you just get the golden pass. You go straight on through. And the fact that didn't happen for Aaliyah and she was sent home is, I don't get it. I don't get it. So that's it for our main feed. That is our 8. If you would like to hear the 3 bonus weird things that I have for you, then you need to join us on Patreon, and we're going to start that right now. So, friends, thank you so much for joining me. It was really cool to be able to go through some of these weird things, and let us know in the comments, either on your podcast platform below, or let us know in the YouTube comments below what you thought about some of the weird things that I brought up for this season. And remember, those of you that are watching or listening on the main feed, I shared a whole bunch of, not a whole bunch, 3 more bonus things that were a little bit weird about the season. So if you want to check them out, go ahead and become a patron. I always mess up saying that. I don't know whether I want to say become a Patreon or become a patron. Let's go with patron. Go ahead and become a patron for $5. That could be your Christmas gift to you and to us, because we're going to continue giving you content even during the break between season 26 and season 27 of The Voice. And season 27 of The Voice is beginning in early February. So we will have fresh NBC's The Voice content coming to you at the top of February, but even in January, we will continue to have fresh content, bonus content about this past season, season 26 of NBC's The Voice, with, again, bonus content for our patrons. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today, and let me know what you need to know in case you don't know it yet, in case you're new. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to the Pitchy Podcast on your favorite podcast platform so you can be the first to know when we release a new podcast and release a new episode. And while you're there, please rate and subscribe and review to the podcast. Also, if you are listening on a podcast, make sure you check us out on YouTube. Search for The Pitchy Podcast and hit that subscribe button so you know when we drop a new video. Also, follow us on Instagram and TikTok, for however long it's still there for, at The Pitchy Podcast for new episode alerts, episode clips, and so much more. And last, I've been saying it the entire episode, join us on Patreon. You gonna get all the content, and you will have access to all of the content from season 26 of NBC's The Voice that you missed if you were not a patron before. So check it out. Information in the IG highlight on our IG page. You can check out the link in our Linktree bio on our IG page. And as always, there's the information and the link in the show notes below. Thank you guys so much for joining me. We will see you all after the new year. So from James and myself, thank you so much for rolling with us and riding with us this season for however long you've been rolling and riding with us for. We appreciate you, and we wish you all a wonderful, wonderful, happy, joyful, restful, healthy holiday season with your family, your friends, your loved ones, and we will see you in the new year. Bye-bye.